then, as the time wore on, I just needed more than anything. I needed some time for somebody else to be with Steve.
Welcome to the Strokecast. A Generation X stroke survivor explores rehab, recovery, the frontiers of neuroscience, and how to peel a banana with one hand.
Hello, and welcome to episode 66 of the Strokecast. When Steve had a massive stroke out in the wilds of Colorado, his determination to survive got him to the point where he could actually get help. Charlene, his wife and now caregiver, demonstrated the same work ethic and fortitude in the weeks and months following his stroke. Stroke spouses, partners, and caregivers are amazing, and this is Charlene's story. Charlene Hayward is a native of Colorado, a mountainous region in the middle of the United States. Growing up, her family did lots of outdoor activities: camping, hiking, water skiing, and snowmobiling, among just a few. Charlene and Steve got married at her parents' cabin in Grand Lake, Colorado, and have stayed true to their mountain roots. They love the mountains and will be moving there full-time in just a short while. They have two amazing daughters that are the center of their lives. Last January, Charlene and Steve became the proud grandparents of a little boy and are over the moon seeing pictures and videos of him weekly. For the most part, Charlene enjoys the weather in Colorado and loves being outside. She likes to read, go for walks, and visit with old friends. She's a swimming and diving official in the summer and for high school, college, and master's levels as well. It is truly her passion. In 2018, Charlene received the Outstanding Caregiver Raising Awareness in Stroke Excellence, or RAISE, Award from the American Heart Association. Now, let's meet Charlene. So Charlene, thank you so much for joining us here on Strokecast this week.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled we were able to connect through the work with the American Heart Association. So let's go ahead and start with sort of getting a picture of how things have changed for you. I mean, what was life like before your husband had a stroke?
Well, he's always been a workaholic. He worked in a shop for like 40 and 50 hours a week. And then he'd go up to the mountains and build houses. And he'd go on cattle drives. And he just worked all the time. That's what life was for us. We just worked all the time.
Sounds like, definitely the kind of folks I would want to have on my zombie apocalypse survival squad.
He was the fixer. He could fix anything. And if he couldn't, he just built it. So he was a doer of everything.
Sort of that very much, Colorado attitude. What do you need to get it done?
Yeah.
Regardless of what's going on around you.
Yes.
So what happened that day?
As I said, he used to go on. We've got some friends down south that have a pretty big herd of cattle, and he would go and help them. They would have to be moved from one, grazing lease to another lease about every 30, 45 days. And he was down on a real live cattle drive. And he had a stroke in the middle of the night, had the wherewithal to get kind of up toward our place in the mountains. The truck got stuck and he stepped out on that left side and kind of tumbled down a hill. He couldn't get back up. And this was in the dead of winter in the mountains of Colorado, which it's not sunny and nice up there most times. He started freezing to the ground. He starts trying to pull himself back up the hill. He worked at it for a while. Luckily, the good Lord sent two Samaritans on that road, which they never, ever are on that road at that time of the day or during that time of the winter. They happened to drive by. They happened to see him. They called an ambulance. They got him to an ambulance from this pass over to Granby. I met him there. We had another ambulance ride down. He would have taken flight for light, but there was a snowstorm going on. So we got down to Denver, and then that's when it started. That's when the whole rehab thing started then.
Wow. So, what's amazing is you've got all of this happening, all of this, a stroke out in the sort of the middle of nowhere, Colorado, trying to drive with the stroke because it's the only option.
Yes.
Getting out of the car and stuck and then finally getting to the hospital. And then that's when everything starts. I mean, that is quite the preview for what's about to happen in life. So, after all of that, how's he doing now?
Bill, he is doing fantastic. His diagnosis was at best bleak. He could not blink or swallow for 2 weeks. He was 100% paralyzed on his left side. However, he had a sense of humor. They told me, they gave me nothing but, pretty much, let's try to just make him comfortable. And I said, no, that's not going to work for us. So I kicked him in the butt, literally, and we got going on rehab, and it was, it was truly baby steps. And I told myself at the time, if we can just take one baby step a day, I'm fine. I don't care if there's 3 million of them that you got to take, but if we just take one a day, and that's where we started, started moving around, rubbing his hand, rubbing his arm, rubbing his leg, moving his arm for him to get stuff going. Just start.
I think what's really key there too is you talk about how it's all about those baby steps. And, we talk about that. Often we use that term in language as just, it's just the basics, just something small. But in this case, this really it's like the baby steps, because the last time we acquired those skills, we were babies.
Yes.
Standing, sitting, walking, blinking, swallowing. And it is all about taking those baby steps again to reacquire those skills.
Right. And we look back and we are, this sounds kind of bad. We're somewhat fortunate that it was so cold out and that it was snowing and that the ground was frozen and that he had his stroke and he was outside then, because I think that temperature helped him not go into total oblivion. It slowed it down. So he was able to come back. It was a huge stroke. It was pretty big on the scale, but he was able to come back because he had gotten so cold and it slowed everything down. I remember the first time that a nurse was in his room and she was doing something and she was giving him a shot or something and she was rubbing, I don't know, something like a cotton ball on his left arm. He turned and looked at me and I said, "Oh, what's wrong?" And she said, "No, he felt that." And I said, "What do you mean he felt it?" And she goes, "Well, I can tell. He felt that." And I thought, you know what? There's baby step number one. He felt somebody touching his left arm. And I thought, whatever it was before, we're going straight. We're headed in the right direction. We maybe got a long way to go, but at least we're headed there. The turtle wins the race, Bill. The turtle wins the race.
He's been doing pretty well through that recovery. How's he doing today?
Great. Like today he's with some friends, going down to another ranch where we got some cattle and they're rounding them up and we've got branding this weekend. And he was never supposed to walk again. I said, well, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. We got to figure that out. So he walks unassisted with a cane now, does not walk fast, but he walks. So he gets with his friends and he's going down there. And once he knows that he's going with his friends, his outlook is bright and he's having a great day, to be down there with the horses and the cows and being outside on a ranch, he couldn't ask for anything more.
There's something really empowering about just being out there and just doing things where you're able to provide value.
Right.
That's great.
Right.
So how are you doing these days? Because this all turned things upside down for you too.
Oh, it did. And, he had a stroke. It was in November of 15.
So not that long ago.
A little more than 3 years. Yeah. And a year later, I was in an accident. I got thrown off a horse. broke a few ribs, broke a few bones in my ankle, messed up my sciatic nerve. A year after that, my mom passed away. So I kind of was on a downhill spiral. I thought, good Lord, get this black cloud away from me. So we're dealing with all that. But, I'm coming through okay. I just have to keep, you got to keep moving forward, keep going forward. Just got to, the bad stuff is back there. We got to get that out of the way and just keep going forward. There's blue skies ahead. We just got to find them.
You mentioned just how bleak your husband's initial prognosis was, and how did you get through that too and manage your own emotional state and trying to reconfigure life at that point?
I guess, well, I don't know. I mean, when we all get married, we say, in sickness and in health, but I didn't think it was going to be that. I mean, we never thought that. I'm a strong person, and I just said, we're going to do it. I didn't say, I don't know how. I didn't know how we were going to do it. I just said, we're going to do it. And it just, just that mindset of never give up, which has been my mantra from day one, never give up. Right. And whether you're talking about planning out the day's activities or, what kind of therapy you're going to do or what, but it's looking forward, you don't need that rear view mirror, maybe on a car, but not in life. Just look out the windshield going forward.
Taking a look in that rearview mirror for a moment, though. I mean, what surprised you most about your new role as a caregiver to a stroke survivor?
Well, I initially said, Lord, I think you picked the wrong person. I think you better get somebody else. I don't think I'm strong enough for this. And I surprised myself how strong I ended up being. It is not easy in any sense of the word. I didn't think I could do it. And truthfully, maybe I haven't done a good job. Don't know. Maybe I'm not the best judge of that. But I didn't think I was strong enough, but I guess I was. I guess that's the answer. I guess I was strong enough. I made myself strong enough, maybe.
I mean, one of the things that happens in these circumstances too is that, obviously your life is upside down. You're tired. You're dealing with all of this. A lot of friends and family will come out and will want to help, especially in the early days. How can friends and family most help the caregivers of the world out there?
Well, we were very fortunate. We have two strong, amazing daughters. They're educated. They're gorgeous. They were here immediately. It was she made a plan. They were out here the next day, and immediately went into action. This is what we're doing. Here's this and everything. Then, as the time wore on, I just needed more than anything. I needed sometimes for somebody else to be with Steve, not just me. He'd get sick of me sometimes. I think he just wanted other people to talk to. That is difficult. That's difficult finding someone. Maybe they don't live close. Maybe they don't feel comfortable coming around. That was the most difficult part. And it still is trying to find time when he can be with other people, because that helps him as well as me. And,
that's one of those things that's interesting too. I hear that when I talk to other folks, there's a lot of value sometimes in, to help out a caregiver or a stroke survivor to just come over and hang out and talk to them. Or sometimes it's even, you don't even have to talk to the person. It's just to be in the room to give somebody else a break. It makes a big difference.
Right. And, we're lucky. Steve was always a reader before. And luckily, and not everyone that's had a stroke can read afterward. He's very lucky that he could read. And he is a voracious reader. So he reads a lot. And I had this speech therapist tell me that reading has helped him and his speech. And you know how the initial stroke patients are, their speech when they first come out of that stroke is very monotoned, and a lot of times they can't find words and that kind of thing. But if you listen to him speak, you would not be able to tell he'd had a stroke. It's like you can't tell you've had a stroke.
Hmm.
That's what his speech is like. And I've had speech therapists tell me that one reason is because he's done well at recovery, but it's because he's been reading so much. So that's wonderful. So people don't have a problem coming over and talking because he can just talk a blue streak, and it's good that he kept reading because it continues to help him.
Yeah, that's great. It's about stretching and making the brain work and making sure it grows those new connections.
Right, right.
I remember one of the things you talked about in one of the books I read talked about the sort of the real estate within the brain. We talk about the idea of neuroplasticity as that nerves that fire together, wire together, which is why doing thousands of repetitions of an action is what it takes to really reacquire that in the brain. But the more you do an activity, the more you use a particular limb or whatever, the more space in the brain, the more physical space is taken up by resources dedicated to that activity.
Right, right.
So the more focused you are on language, the more brain real estate there already is for language to recover.
Right, right. And I think maybe people that have had strokes so far in the past, the technology and the research wasn't quite there. And just like anything, I mean, 10 years ago, they didn't know to do all those things that they do today. And that's why stroke patients are better at surviving and moving forward than they were 10 years ago.
Oh, sure. I mean, 20 years ago, most people were still saying that, all of the recovery you're going to get is going to happen in 6 months or 12 months. And after that, you're done.
Yeah.
And we know that's nonsense now.
That's 100% incorrect. Right, right.
And it's such a poisonous perspective to tell somebody in the early days that this is your time limit.
And that reminds me, I remember Steve being in the hospital and one of the therapists came in and he said to him, Steve, now, okay, so you've had a stroke. Okay, you're moving forward here. You've got to pick a goal. Find a goal to move forward. And Steve said, oh, okay. And he said, Steve, what is your goal? And he said, I want to get back on my horse. And the therapist said, now, Steve, you're never going to get back on a horse again. You're never going to ride again. And I thought, that's the best bad advice he ever got. Because that one thing, telling him one time that he was not going to get back on a horse, did more help for him than anybody else. Because you know what he did? He got back on a horse and he rides a horse every single week. And so, I mean, it was horrible to have to go through that, just standing there thinking, why did you just say that? Why would you say that to somebody? But it was the best bad advice he ever got because he rides a horse now. So you just have to keep putting that foot forward and you have to do whatever you think you want to do. You do everything you can to move toward that goal.
And that's how you do it. That's what it takes. It's all about those baby steps to hit those goals.
Yep. That's right.
So one of the things that happens when we enter stroke world is that we start encountering this whole other collection of people, the doctors, the therapists, and the other survivors and caregivers, and often through the local support groups and the online groups and all these other resources. So, I mean, what role do sort of the local groups play in your life today?
Well, we do go to we have a local support group over at St. Anthony's, and they meet once a month. I wish they met more frequently because they really are a true support group. We go in and sometimes they have a person coming in and talking. Sometimes we listen to TED Talks. Sometimes they split up the caregivers from the stroke survivors, and it's different every time. But we have become a family. We care about them. We know their stories. What they started doing in the stroke group, like two people, like they pick on two, not pick on two people. They asked two people to kind of share their story. And, one girl shared her story and I thought, oh, I never knew that. You said this and this, but I never knew that. And when you hear someone's whole story about their stroke, you become connected to them. And that stroke support group is our other family. And that's where we go. And we see people improve. Steve mentioned something the other day. He said, that Bobby girl, when she walked in the other day, she was walking better. And you know what? Bobby was walking. And I said, what you need to do, Steve, is go over and tell Bobby that she is walking better. And it is just such a great family atmosphere that stroke support group provides, that it is just amazing. What, everybody comes out of there. It's like Christmas every day. Everybody comes out of there feeling great because we met with our closest friends. It really is good.
No, that's great. And I think, you mentioned there that whole, go up and tell Bobby, you notice that she's walking better. That's one of those things too, where we go through this and we make these little improvements, but we don't see them ourselves because they are so subtle from a day-to-day basis. But when you can start looking at somebody and see where they were at a month ago or 3 months ago, that's where some of the empowering stuff is.
Right. And we see that in the group. And, we have the whole gamut, of younger people, in their 30s and 40s up to, 70 and 80-year-old people. We have the whole life spectrum in there. And you can see where they're going. And one guy took a little turn. He had to have a hip replaced or something. Well, now he's back on track, and then one girl had a couple seizures. She had another small stroke, but you know what? She's coming around. And we just try to be, it's not just a support group for us to receive the support. I think our job there, just as humans, is to offer support for everybody in the group. When you offer more, hopefully you're going to get it back.
That's where the real value is that support group is not just about taking, it's about the give and take among all the members.
Right.
What is one thing that you wish you knew back in those early days that you know now?
Well, my daughter had a friend that her older sister was a PA or is a PA. And this PA said, when you're picking a rehab center, don't look at the facility. Don't look at the medical, the nurses, the doctors, the CNAs. Don't look at the food. Those can all be bad. It doesn't matter what they are. What you're looking at is therapy. Therapy. And I would, look at these centers and they would offer therapy twice a week, an hour a day, 2 days a week. So we had 2 hours of therapy. And I thought, well, that's not enough. I found somebody that was going to offer therapy 5 to 6 days a week. And that's the one thing the one good thing that I'm glad I'm listened to on somebody saying, because I didn't know that. I had no idea. Somebody said, get therapy. Make sure he gets speech therapy. Make sure he gets occupational therapy. Make sure he gets physical therapy. Make sure he gets all of that, because I didn't know that. I did not know. I didn't know that was the path to getting better, but I do now. And thank goodness somebody pointed that out to me. So that's the one thing that I did not know. And luckily somebody pointed it out, and that's why Steve has done as well as he has.
Yeah, that is really important. That's some fantastic guidance there. A lot of places that, do rehab, if they're not specific to neuro rehab, that they're more focused on just, getting physical parts back together. This different rhythm that you need. I mean, a lot of times, I have to remind myself or talk to other people, there is absolutely nothing wrong with my arm. There is absolutely nothing wrong with my leg. The entire problem is in my head. It is literally that chunk of dead cells in my brain that I have to learn to work around. And that's what therapy has to be focused on. How do we make that brain work by doing all these things with this arm and this leg? It's not about repairing a knee or repairing a hip.
Right. Yeah. That's true. That's true. And something, and I kept telling Steve, you just got to do the therapy. You got to do therapy. And I can remember sometimes the therapist would tell me at the rehab center, Steve came down this afternoon. He got in his wheelchair and rolled down, and he came in so he could sit on the bike some more. And, he would do it himself. He'd have his therapy sessions, every day he'd have his PTOT and ST. But then in the afternoon, when they were done with him, he'd go back after lunch. He'd roll his wheelchair in there and say, could I get on the bike? And they just loved it, And so it was something that was drilled into him. Get your therapy, get on the bike. Doesn't matter what you do. Just get in there and do something, And so it was the best thing in the world that we did to get to a place where they offered therapy all the time.
I mean, as part of your role and what you've been doing, I mean, you won the 2018 Raise Award from the American Heart Association. I mean, what was that experience like?
Well, thank you. That was wonderful. When the girl called me, I was stuttering. I didn't know what to say. Are you sure you have the right phone number? I didn't apply for this. I knew nothing about it. I was truly humbled. I went up and told Steve about it, and he says, "Oh, of course you would get that," and how kind of him. But after it sunk in, Bill, I tell you what it meant. Any person that the good Lord decides to put in that 24/7, 365 caregiver mode, every one of them deserve that award. I don't know that I do anything more than anybody else, but from the onset, it was that therapy thing. I keep going back to that, but I was so humbled that somebody thought so much of me and what we did that I was into that position. And I don't know how many people they were in the pool to be voted on, but that was like life altering. I could not believe it. I got so many compliments from that. Certainly my daughters were very, very proud, and it was wonderful. It was a really nice tribute.
How does that award sort of impact your life today? What doors sort of has it opened, or what other opportunities has it led for you to share your story?
Well, of course, things like this, and then the stroke support group, they've offered, things, same kind of things. And some people aren't, how do I put it? They don't feel like they can go on any media type thing and share their story. They just don't feel comfortable, I guess is the word, saying that. They just don't feel comfortable. So, and I'm comfortable doing that. But, I think just sharing stories about things, and maybe somebody will learn something, maybe it'll click on something. It'll get a spark going on somebody, and maybe it'll help them.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's sort of where the real power is in storytelling and being able to share your story. Humans are all powered by stories. It's how we connect. It's how we bond. It's how we've shared lessons for millennia. It's how the greatest religions of the world were born on collections of stories. The entire Bible is built around telling stories to teach lessons. And today it's all about sharing our stories with one another. That's where people can connect. That's where people can start to think, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm not alone. Maybe somebody else can hear what I'm doing. Right.
That's true. And, even before that, my daughters, they would say to me, Mom, now I see you're doing all this for Dad. Mom, you got to stop sometimes, and you have to take care of yourself. I said, yeah, I kind of do this. I kind of do that. And they said, no, Mom, you have to take care of yourself, because look at it like this. If something happens to you, what happens to Dad? And I said, oh boy. So that was good advice as well, coming from family. You need to take care of yourself, and whether it's alone time or, making sure you do yoga or working out or going for walks or going to a movie with a friend or going shopping, something, you have to take care of yourself. Because if you don't, what's going to happen to that stroke survivor? Especially if if they could live on their own independently, it's one thing, but if they couldn't, what are you doing to them by neglecting yourself? So another good piece of advice from the family.
Right. It's like the flight attendants tell us at the beginning of every flight. You have to put on your own oxygen mask before helping those around you. It
sounds so simple, but we ourselves are the ones that make it difficult. But it is very simple. Take care of yourself. That's right.
That's with so many things in life. It sounds so simple, and we ourselves are the ones who make it more difficult.
Exactly.
So, Charlene, thank you so much for joining us here this week. Your story is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Bill, for having me. I appreciated talking with you.
And that brings us to our hack of the week.
You try to read inspirational things because you're hoping that one thing is going to make you jumpstart your day. But I tell you what, Bill, I told you earlier, my mantra of never give up. You just can't. Even when you have a bad day and you want to go in the other room and shed a few tears, when the stroke survivor isn't having the best day and things are really looking bleak, at the end of the day, you both crawl into bed and you say, you know what? Today's done. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. You just cannot give up. And, sometimes I read, inspirational quotes. I read a couple quotes, the one by John Lennon about when he was 5 years old and his mother told him about being happy. That one, that's a good one. I read another one from Derek Jeter all the time about being strong and working hard. And those are the kind of things that, they just keep you going.
Charlene referenced 3 specific quotes in her hack, and here they are. First, from Derek Jeter. There may be people who have more talent than you, but there's no excuse for anyone to work harder than you do. From John Lennon. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. And the one that guides her whole life today is simply this: never give up. Charlene and Steve make a good couple in part because of their work ethics. What comes through most clearly to me in this conversation is that you can't take the easy way out, and you shouldn't want to. Do the work, do the therapy, fail and try again, take those baby steps, and just get a little bit better every day. If you'd like to reach out to Charlene or congratulate her on her Raise Award from the American Heart Association, head on over to the comments at strokecast.com/Charlene. Share this episode with a caregiver you know by giving them the link, strokecast.com/Charlene. Subscribe to Strokecast in your favorite podcast app for free so you never miss an episode. And of course, as always, don't get best. Get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you soon.
The Strokecast, Bill Monroe, and Bill's guests provide general information and entertainment, not medical advice. Please do not make any changes to your treatment plan or the execution of your treatment plan without first consulting your personal doctor or medical team. The Strokecast is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.